The now available Hammer Scorpion Low Flare is the second non-SPI ball I've thrown in nearly a decade, and will also be the second non-SPI ball review I've ever done. Plus, you'll also get to see James return to the channel for a high-rev right-handed look in part 2, which is coming soon. I'm bowling on the Kegel Chromium lane condition that we always use for testing. It's a challenge pattern at just under a 7-to-1 ratio. It's 42 feet long, 25.5 mils. That puts it on the heavy side of medium for both volume and length. It's not as easy as a house shot, but not as punishing as a sport pattern. I also have my layout information up on the screen in both languages. Fairly simple pinup layout, and for reference, the CG ended up in the ring finger on this one. Of course, that's not significant, but I figured I'd get asked, so just covering that base. Lower differential balls have historically gotten stronger layouts, but I've learned my lesson over the last several months with RGs this low on symmetric cores. They don't need any help rolling or revving sooner, and without any torque to help them finish stronger, going with stronger pins was giving me angle issues. They were starting up too early to play straighter with, but when I got in they were too slow, so backing off on the pin strength puts the front to back balance in a better place for me. I'm going to switch it up here too. Usually I just monologue while you watch ball reaction, but I'm still going to give you the details first while we watch to get your eyes warmed up. Then we're going to run it back and tackle it zone by zone to talk about the adjustments I made when moving around, where it felt the most comfortable, where I felt like I had to help it the most, so on and so forth, just to get deeper and give you a much better idea where it's going to fit, both for me and for you. For the details, the cover is Semtex Hybrid, which all the hammerheads will be familiar with. It comes out of the box at 2000 grit, which I left it at. Viewers have long argued that I should test everything right out of the box because that's how the manufacturer intends it, and that's how most people will first experience a ball. They just punch it up and go. My counter was that first of all, the manufacturer has to send it at something, and the biggest intent is for it to look pretty on the wall in the pro shop. Next, box surfaces aren't perfectly consistent. Just because it says 2000 on the box doesn't mean the one you get is going to be exactly 2000. Plus, if you know what works for your game, you can reset it to something you can also then consistently return it to. Finally, comparing balls that might come at different out-of-box surfaces is going to skew the comparison somewhat. If I adjust the surfaces, everything gets compared at the same surface, which helps you get a better idea how they actually compare. However, to split the difference, if I review it out of the box, I can make adjustment recommendations on whether you should probably reset it or just roll with it and see what happens. Plus, after moving around and getting some lane shine on the ball, I go back and revisit the earlier zones to take another look. I think in the case of this ball, as you've already seen, it's pretty chewy, so unless you're going to use it on heavier volume, tougher patterns only, probably should take it up to 3000 or 4000, maybe even polish it depending on what you're after, or just let it lane shine. But I think it's going to be too much for most people at the out-of-box surface. The LED 3.0 low flare core has a 2.474 RG and an 0.31 differential, very low RG, which will help the ball get rolling and revving quickly. That creates mid-lane stability, and then the medium-low differential keeps the flare in a manageable place to make the ball more controllable, which is the point. The higher the differential, the more distance there is between the oil lines on the ball, and the more distance there is, the more fresh cover is exposed to the lane on every rotation, which makes the ball more aggressive, which isn't always what you want. The idea here is to give you a strong but controllable ball to help you out on tougher conditions. Everyone help me say thanks to the Brands of Brunswick for reaching out and offering to send me some things for you all to see, plus there are a few more surprises yet to come. Obviously this ball is a Chonkosaurus Rex out of the box. It's not as dusty as the NV Tour we'll see later as a comparison, but surprisingly strong, so it took me a little extra time to adjust. Eventually I got a little firmer with my speed and softer with my hand, but it was 10 to 15 shots before it really clicked, and the straighter zone just wasn't an option either out of the box or with a little lane shine when I returned later to try it again. It was still pretty diggy when I moved in, and while it took a minute to find the sweet spot, once I found it we were in good shape. The cover is strong enough that it wants to do a bunch of work, but again, the core isn't super dynamic, so getting the blend right of getting it down the lane, but then still getting it to finish down lane and get it through the pins the right way was tough initially. I think most of that again was the surface. How early it was picking up was the issue. Moving further in, but also getting a couple games of use on it helped quite a bit too. I wouldn't have thought that 3rd and 4th arrow would have been the preferred zones for this ball. SPI fans are going to ask how it compares to the IQ Tour Solid, and it just doesn't. It shapes like it, sure, it has that very rolly rounder shape, but the Scorpion Low Flare is the stronger ball by quite a bit. Core numbers are virtually identical, same core shape even. There's just a huge traction difference. The IQs are much cleaner and really don't like getting that deep. What's even wilder is that the Scorpion is $145 at Bowler's Mart, and it's a whole lot of ball for that price point. Now before I get these questions, I'm not going to answer is this ball or this brand better than that ball or that brand, because better is completely relative. I just describe ball reaction and leave you to make the decision. The IQ Tour is obviously great at what it does. I'm just pointing out that there are zero worries about overlap here. If you like the IQ and want a stronger, more dynamic version for a steal of a price, this is it. As far as overall strength and reaction, I think it's a lot closer to the Phase 2, just a little weaker and smoother. There's a great balance in the reaction too. It's smoothish and controllable, but it has a nice firm readable move on the back end. It's often easy to get grabby with smoother equipment to try and help them get up through the pins the right way so that you don't leave flat corners all day, but this one pops without being too responsive and moving it out of the reaction zone it's supposed to fit in. As I get into the deepest zone, I did have to get around it a little more, but I didn't have to slow it down or rev it up more at all. Matter of fact, I couldn't get slow with it or I was in trouble. Typically, more tour-type balls like this require a little more help from the bowler, but that's kind of the point too, is not having to fight too dynamic of a ball reaction. This one splits the gap and gives you the shape and control, while at the same time allowing you to relax and execute a comfortable shot. I think the Scorpion Low Flare is definitely in league killer territory for me, and actually it might be better in league than on tougher stuff. It's pretty strong and was almost even a little too much for this pattern, so I definitely need a heavier and or longer pattern for it to be at its best. I said several times that I didn't get other company ball envy that much, and with the amount of bowling balls I go through, I rarely get actually excited to drill something. It's always fun to drill new stuff, don't get me wrong, but getting to put holes in an Envy Tour made me tingly. This monster comes out of the box at 1,000 grit, and I think that's obviously going to be wildly unnecessary for the vast majority of people. It features the Obsession Tour Core, which, to keep it simple, features virtually the same numbers as the Scorpion Low Flare does, just with a mild amount of asymmetry to juice it up a little. The Envy Solid cover is also just marginally weaker than the cover on the Extreme Envy, so to also get out ahead of this question, the Envy Tour is miles stronger than the Tour Dynamics. The TDX cover is basically a hustle or hype level cover, which is the weakest that SPI currently makes, and the core is even a little weaker, while the Envy Tour cover is nearly the strongest one that Hammer makes. The result here is a little rounder shape than the Scorpion Low Flare and a step up on strength. Same general experience as I move around though. All I had to do as I got deeper was get around a little bit more, or due to the lower diff and lower torque, it didn't have quite enough engine to get through the pins right on its own from that deep. That's all I had to do though. It's a very simple adjustment, and neither of these balls are built for angle in the first place. The point is control, not covering board, so the fact that they managed to give you control while also allowing you to chase the shot deeper is impressive. These two balls complement each other extremely well. The Scorpion is a little longer and more defined at the break point. Envy Tour is earlier and blends more. Part of that is the surface difference, but hey, throwing them at boxes requested. But keeping them at their box surfaces will maintain that separation a little better, as the manufacturer intends, you might say, but you're definitely going to need plenty of oil if that's the goal. Both of these balls are available now. Down in the description is a link to Bowler's Mart that will get either of them ordered for you. I do have to note, of course, that I do receive a 5% commission on all sales through the links, and of course don't forget my code ROSEDALL10 to get 10% off your order at checkout at CoolWick. Thanks for watching, and may the strikes be with you.